In an old apartment in the suburbs of Fresno, California, Emma Johnson had been unable to find her place within her family since she was young. The Johnson family, living in a room of a two-story apartment building, was far from wealthy. Her father Mike worked at a local food processing plant, and her mother Linda was a janitor at a nearby office building. However, all of their parents' love and attention was devoted to their youngest daughter, Sophia. When Emma was 10 years old, her sister Sophia was already known in the neighborhood as a child prodigy. She could solve math problems instantly and read at twice the speed of children her age. Teachers constantly praised Sophia's talents, and their parents proudly shared these stories with relatives and neighbors. Emma, on the other hand, was an ordinary child with average grades. Even when she worked hard on homework or scored well on tests, her parents' reactions were lukewarm, and the conversation would quickly shift to Sophia's latest achievements. When she entered high school, this disparity became even more pronounced. Sophia was selected for the advanced academic program and won award after award in math Olympiads and science competitions. Their parents were convinced of their daughter's bright future and worked desperately to save money for Sophia's college tuition. Meanwhile, Emma started working part-time after school to help with household expenses. She washed dishes at a local burger shop and worked as a cashier at the supermarket on weekends. When she came home exhausted, the daily scene was Sophia showing her parents a new certificate in the living room. "Emma, you should follow Sophia's example. If you focused more on your studies, you could surely get better grades," her mother Linda would say every time Emma sat down at the dinner table with a tired expression. Emma could only nod silently. She knew that even if she explained her own efforts, she would always be told she was just making excuses. When Sophia was accepted as a scholarship student at the state university, the family threw a big celebration party. All the relatives gathered to celebrate Sophia's glory. Emma also hoped to go to college, but her parents' response was cold. "We don't have money, Sophia's tuition is all we can manage, college isn't for you," such words were repeated. Emma even suggested attending the local community college, but even that was rejected as a waste of money. On the morning of her 18th birthday, Emma went to the living room with small expectations. Her previous birthdays had been simple affairs, but she thought this special day of becoming an adult might be different. However, her parents were eating breakfast as usual. Sophia had returned from her college dorm and was elegantly drinking tea with a new designer bag. That bag cost more than Emma could earn in 3 months of part-time work. "Good morning," Emma greeted them, and her father Mike looked up from his newspaper. His expression was more stern than usual, with a color of determination floating in it. "Emma, sit down. We need to talk." Emma sat in the chair, feeling an unpleasant premonition in the depths of her heart. Linda took a deep breath and opened her mouth as if stating a conclusion she had thought through for a long time. "Emma, you're 18 now, aren't you? You're an adult, right? We've reached our limit too. Sophia's college expenses are mounting, and we can't afford to have 3 or 4 adults in this house. We want you to leave." Emma couldn't believe her ears. The words told to her on the morning of her birthday were the most shocking she had ever heard in her life. "But I just graduated from high school." "Don't be spoiled," Sophia interrupted, setting down her teacup. "I've been preparing for independence since I was 16. How long are you planning to depend on our parents, big sister?" Mike threw a heavy suitcase at Emma's feet. "Pack your things. We want you out today." "Excellent, Sophia alone is enough." Linda's voice was cold, with a tone as if disposing of unnecessary baggage. "Even if you stay, you won't contribute anything to this house, will you?" Sophia stood up and placed her hand on Emma's shoulder. That hand was full of false sympathy, but a sneer floated at the corner of her mouth. "Why don't you become homeless? Then you might finally see reality." Emma picked up the suitcase with trembling hands. When she left the house where she had lived for 18 years, she did not look back. Dragging a single suitcase, Emma left home and continued walking through the city with nowhere to go. She contacted friends from high school, but many had already gone to college out of state, and the remaining friends were living at home and weren't in a position to suddenly take in a friend. Only her best friend Jessica offered to let her stay for 2 weeks, but that wasn't a long-term solution either. The 2 weeks spent at Jessica's house were precious time for Emma to accept reality. Jessica's parents were kind and showed sympathy for Emma's situation, but it was clear they also had their limits. During the day, Emma searched for work at local fast food restaurants and finally managed to find a part-time job at Burger King. The hourly wage was minimum wage, but beggars can't be choosers. After leaving Jessica's house, Emma experienced truly homeless life. For the first few days, she spent nights in her old car. This car was a used vehicle she had bought with money saved from part-time work in high school. The air conditioning was broken and the seats were torn, but it was Emma's only refuge. She was sometimes woken up by police in the middle of the night and had to keep moving from parking lots to other locations. Winter nights were especially hard. Although California winters weren't as harsh as other states, they were cold enough to make spending a night in a car uncomfortable. Emma would wrap herself in old blankets and read books by the light of her cell phone, or kill time at 24-hour McDonald's or Denny's searching for free Wi-Fi. At these establishments, she could linger for hours with a single cup of coffee and freshen up in the restrooms. The daytime work at Burger King was physically and mentally demanding. She worked 8-hour shifts standing on her feet and sometimes had to deal with unreasonable customer complaints. However, Emma continued working without complaint. If she were fired, she would literally be out on the streets. Her coworkers were all older than Emma, and some were juggling 2 or 3 jobs. From them, Emma learned life wisdom: where to eat cheaply, which public restroom facilities were clean and safe, which libraries stayed open late. About a month later, Emma also started night cleaning work. It was a job cleaning local office buildings from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Ironically, this was the same type of work as her mother Linda, but Emma tried not to think about that. Burger King during the day, cleaning at night. She could only get 3 to 4 hours of sleep in her car, but she finally began to see the possibility of saving enough for a security deposit on a small apartment. Maria, a Mexican-American woman who worked with her on the cleaning job, was raising 3 children as a single mother. When she heard about Emma's situation, she encouraged her, saying, "You're young, so you can definitely climb out of this." During breaks, Maria often watched TikTok and Instagram videos on her smartphone. "Looking at these helps me forget the hard times," she said with a laugh. Emma began imitating her, watching social media videos during break time. At first it was just escapism, but gradually she became interested in videos by various content creators. She was particularly drawn to stories of people who had succeeded from circumstances similar to her own. One day, Maria said to Emma, "Why don't you try making videos? Your story would surely resonate with many people." At first Emma hesitated. She was reluctant to expose her miserable life to the world. However, one night when she was alone in her car, she suddenly picked up her cell phone. She filmed her first video beginning with words like, "Good evening, I'm Emma. I was kicked out by my family on my 18th birthday and am now living in my car." The video was far from professional. The lighting was poor and the audio was unclear. However, Emma spoke honestly about her situation, her family's treatment, her current life, and her anxiety about the future. At the end of the video, she declared, "But I won't give up. I will definitely climb out of this." She posted this video on TikTok at 2 a.m. The next morning when Emma woke up, her phone was filled with notifications. Her first video had been viewed over 1,000 times overnight and received dozens of comments. Many were encouraging messages like, "Hang in there, I'm rooting for you," and "I had a similar experience." Emma read them with tears streaming down her face. From then on, Emma began capturing her daily life in videos every day. Short videos filmed during breaks at Burger King, videos shot in her car before and after cleaning work, scenes of her studying at the library. Her videos had no pretense and showed the harsh reality of life. But that was exactly what touched the hearts of many people. 3 months later, Emma's follower count exceeded 10,000. The comment sections of her videos began receiving daily messages from young people in similar circumstances. "Watching your videos makes me want to work harder too. When I'm about to give up, your videos always save me." Reading such words, Emma realized that her experiences were helping others. When her followers reached 50,000, she received her first sponsorship offer from a company. A small apparel brand contacted her saying, "We were moved by your sincerity. Would you introduce our clothes?" The compensation was $500, which was a fortune for Emma. 6 months later, Emma's follower count surpassed 200,000, and she began receiving multiple sponsorships per month. The content of her videos also gradually changed. They began to include not just life's hardships, but also small successes and positive messages. Emma valued her relationship with viewers and made sure to reply to comments. By the 9th month, Emma's monthly income exceeded her parents' annual income. She finally graduated from living in her car and was able to rent a small studio apartment. The apartment was far from luxurious, but to Emma it felt like a palace. The night she slept in her own bed for the first time, Emma was filled with deep emotion. Even after moving into the apartment, Emma never forgot her humility. In her videos, she introduced her new home not as bragging, but as a message of hope that situations could improve with effort. "I want to tell myself from a year ago, it's okay, you're not alone. Better days will surely come." This statement by Emma resonated with many viewers, and the video was viewed over 1 million times. When a year had passed, Emma's follower count had surpassed 1 million. She was no longer just a TikToker, but had become a symbol of hope for her generation. High-paying sponsorship contracts from major companies, television appearance offers, and book publishing deals began pouring in. However, Emma never became arrogant and always remembered her origins. In her videos, she sometimes talked about the nights spent in her car and the days when she could only eat one meal a day. This was not only for her viewers, but also as a warning to herself. Emma's 19th birthday was spent in completely different circumstances from a year before. She was sitting across from her manager, Sarah Wilson, at The Ivy, a high-end restaurant in Beverly Hills. Sarah was a sophisticated woman in her early 40s with over 20 years of experience in the Los Angeles entertainment industry. She had spotted Emma's talent early on and had been managing her for 3 months. "Emma, can you believe it? A year ago today, you were sleeping in your car. And now we're at a restaurant frequented by Hollywood stars, discussing your $1 million contract," Sarah said with a smile, raising her champagne glass. On the table lay an exclusive contract with a major cosmetics manufacturer. It was a $1.2 million annual contract, an amount that would completely change Emma's life. However, Emma's expression was complex. In her joy of success, there was something casting a shadow. "Sarah, there's something I haven't told you," Emma began, carefully choosing her words. "It's about my family." Sarah leaned forward with interest. "Of course, tell me. Your story is always honest, and that's why your followers love you." Emma took a deep breath. Up until now in her videos, she had mentioned being kicked out by her family, but had avoided details. "Actually, last night, I accidentally found my parents' social media. It really was by accident." When Emma was looking at an old friend's Facebook page, her mother Linda's account appeared as a mutual friend. Driven by curiosity, she looked at it and found a scene she hadn't expected. Her father Mike had been in an accident at the factory 3 months ago, injuring his back and becoming unable to work. Although workers' compensation was approved, the benefits weren't sufficient, and the household finances were in a difficult situation. Linda's posts contained words like, "My husband's medical expenses are mounting and it's difficult. We're causing everyone worry." Even more surprising was Sophia's current situation. Although more than a year had passed since her college graduation, she still hadn't found employment. While she was supposed to have received job offers from multiple companies, in reality she had been continuously rejected in interviews. The parents said publicly that Sophia has high standards and is choosing a good company, but in reality she had been continuing in a state of unemployment at home. "So the excellent sister they expected when they kicked you out didn't turn out as expected," Sarah said, organizing the situation. "That's right. And now they're in financial difficulty," Emma continued, suppressing complex emotions. "But Sarah, I have very mixed feelings. I should hate them, yet I also feel pity for them." Sarah, with her years of experience and insight, tried to understand Emma's inner feelings. "Do you want to contact them?" "I don't know," Emma answered honestly. "But I feel like I need to do something. I wonder if staying silent like this is the right thing to do. The sunset visible through the restaurant window softly illuminated Emma's face. She had become refined and confident to a degree unimaginable from a year ago. However, deep inside was a profound conflict about her relationship with her family. Emma, I understand your feelings. But don't forget one thing. They abandoned you. They threw out an 18-year-old girl without any support. Sarah's voice contained anger. But family is family, isn't it? Emma said hesitantly. Blood ties don't make a family, Sarah declared. Your followers support you much more than they ever did. That night, Emma returned to her apartment and spent a long time thinking. On the desk lay a copy of the contract she had signed that day. Annual income of $1.2 million. This was more than 10 times her parents' combined annual income. A year ago, when she was working at the fast food restaurant, her hourly wage was $7.25. Now she could earn thousands of dollars from a single post. Emma picked up her phone and looked at her parents' social media pages again. Her father's latest post was complaining about medical bill payments, and her mother's post was introducing money-saving recipes. Sophia's account had stopped updating 3 months ago. Probably she couldn't accept the reality that her job search wasn't going well. The next morning, Emma made a decision. She would write them a letter. However, it wouldn't be a letter seeking reconciliation, but one to confront them with reality. When she began writing the letter, emotions she had suppressed for a year came pouring out. The humiliation of the day she was kicked out, the cold nights spent in the car, the days she couldn't sleep from hunger. And her own efforts and success in climbing out of that situation. Dear Father, Mother, and Sophia, the letter began. Exactly 1 year has passed since I left home. That day, you said, "Excellent sister, alone is enough." You threw a suitcase at my feet, and Sophia laughed, saying, "Why don't you become homeless?" A year ago today, I was supposed to spend my 19th birthday in my car. But now, I'm discussing a $1.2 million annual contract at a high-end restaurant in Beverly Hills. Do you know that I've become a TikTok influencer with 1 million followers? Probably not. You've never shown interest in me. During this past year, I never once asked for your help. Not when I was living virtually homeless, not when I could only eat 1 meal a day. And now, even after succeeding, I haven't contacted you. Please look at the attached documents. This is a certificate of my bank account balance. Currently, my total assets exceed $2 million. This should be more than the combined lifetime earnings of father and mother. I also know that Sophia's job search isn't going as planned, that father can't work due to injury, and that mother is struggling with medical bill payments. But if excellent sister alone is enough, then you wouldn't need assistance from me either. I'm now learning what true family means. It's not blood ties, but relationships where people support and respect each other. My followers, strangers to me, have supported me more warmly than my family ever did. With this letter, I want to formally end our relationship. I will continue walking my new life as Emma Johnson. Please take care. Emma. After finishing the letter, Emma obtained a bank balance certificate and included it in the envelope along with copies of her latest income statements. These documents clearly showed her financial success. On her way to the post office, Emma had complex feelings. Would this really be the end? But at the same time, she felt a sense of liberation. She had finally been able to express the anger and sadness she had carried deep in her heart for so long. At the moment of mailing the letter, Emma took a deep breath. Now I can be free, she whispered to herself. That night, Emma posted a new video on TikTok. The title was, "The Beginning of a New Life." In the video, while hinting that she had put an end to her relationship with her family, she said, "Sometimes, letting go is the most courageous choice." This video was viewed 5 million times in 24 hours and received tens of thousands of comments. Many followers praised Emma's courageous decision, and people with similar experiences shared their own stories. That night, Emma had the most peaceful sleep of her life for the first time. 3 days later in the afternoon, a letter arrived at the Johnson family apartment. Seeing the sender's name, Linda couldn't help but cry out, "Mike." There's a letter from Emma. Mike got up from the living room sofa. Due to his back injury, his movements had become much more careful and slow than before. From Emma? Don't tell me she's asking for money. Sophia came out of her room. Although more than a year had passed since her college graduation, she was still spending time in her room at home. Her job search wasn't going well, and recently she had become reluctant even to attend interviews. A letter from Big Sister? That's unusual. She's probably written some sob story. Linda picked up the letter with a complex expression. Actually, during this past year, she had sometimes thought about Emma. Especially when she woke up in the middle of the night, guilt about throwing out her 18-year-old daughter would cross her mind. However, she never expressed these feelings in front of her family. Let's open it, Linda said after the three of them sat around the dining table, and she opened the envelope. Linda's expression gradually changed as she began reading the letter. At first it was just mild interest, but as she read on, her eyes widened, and by the end her face had turned pale. What's wrong, Mom? Sophia asked worriedly. Linda began reading aloud the contents of the letter in a trembling voice. Dear Father, Mother, and Sophia. Each of Emma's words cut through the family's hearts like sharp blades. 1 million followers? TikTok? What's that? Mike shook his head, unable to understand. When they finished reading the letter to the end, the room was enveloped in heavy silence. However, what broke that silence was the bank balance certificate. The moment Linda saw that document, she dropped the letter. $2 million. Linda's voice trembled softly. Is this real? Mike took the document and checked the numbers multiple times. His annual income was around $40,000, and even combined with Linda's income, it didn't reach $70,000. Emma's assets far exceeded their lifetime earnings. It's a lie, absolutely a lie, Sophia raised her voice. There's no way that Big Sister could earn this much money. These must be forged documents. However, Linda had already picked up her smartphone. With trembling fingers, she searched for Emma Johnson TikTok. What appeared on the screen was a familiar face. However, it was completely different from the Emma who had left home a year ago. Sophisticated clothing, professional makeup, and above all, a confident expression. Follower count. 1.2 million, Linda muttered. Emma's profile read, influencer, author, speaker, and her latest posts had hundreds of thousands of likes. Mike also began searching for Emma's name on his smartphone. Then he found article after article about her. Headlines like Woman Who Went From Homeless to Millionaire at 18, TikToker Who Overcame Adversity to Success, and Emma Johnson, Star of Hope for Young People, were lined up. Is this really Emma? Mike's voice was mixed with confusion. Sophia looked at her parents' smartphones and was speechless seeing her sister's image there. The Emma she knew had always been reserved and had a thin presence in the family. However, the Emma on the screen was confident and was an influencer loved by millions of people. But why didn't she contact us? Linda was confused. If she succeeded, isn't it normal to share it with family? Mike read the letter again. If excellent sister alone is enough, then you wouldn't need assistance from me either. She's throwing back exactly what we said to her that day. Just then, Sophia's phone rang. It was from a college friend. Sophia, isn't your sister the famous TikToker Emma Johnson? That's amazing. Sophia hurriedly hung up. However, after that, calls from friends and acquaintances kept flooding in. Emma's success had already become a topic of conversation locally. The neighbors know too? Linda turned pale. We'll be seen as parents who kicked out their daughter. Actually, that was exactly right. Emma hadn't spoken about details in her videos, but she had explained her circumstances with the expression, encouraged to be independent by my family on my 18th birthday. Many viewers understood that Emma had been abandoned by her family. The next day, at the neighborhood supermarket, Linda was approached by an acquaintance. Linda, I heard your daughter has become famous. But why is she working hard alone? Didn't the family support her? Unable to answer that question, Linda cut her shopping short and went home. When she arrived home, Mike was waiting with a serious expression. I tried to contact Emma, but her phone number has changed and she's blocked us on social media. We've been completely cut off from communication. She's serious about ending our relationship. That night, the three family members had a long discussion for the first time in a while. However, it wasn't the harmonious conversation of before, but an ugly argument filled with escapism and blame shifting. It's all your fault, Linda blamed Mike. You were the one who said, "Don't spoil our daughter." It's not just my fault. You also favored only Sophia and were cold to Emma, Mike countered. Sophia listened to her parents' argument while reconsidering her current situation. Why couldn't she, who had been an honor student in college, find employment? What was the reason she kept getting rejected in interviews? And why had her sister, whom she had always looked down upon, succeeded so much? A week later, a small article appeared in the local newspaper. It read, "Local influencer Emma Johnson donates $500,000 to charity." The article also mentioned that Emma had achieved success without family support. People in the neighborhood who read this article changed how they looked at the Johnson family. They began to be viewed strangely in the community as a family that hadn't supported their successful daughter. Mike began to feel people's stares when he went out for injury treatment. Linda began avoiding questions from colleagues during her cleaning work. Did we do something wrong? Linda murmured to Mike one night. What are you saying now? Mike answered bitterly. We had no choice at the time. We had to make a choice for Sophia's future. However, that excellent Sophia still couldn't find employment and had recently almost given up even on job hunting. Meanwhile, Emma, whom they had abandoned, had become a star of hope for young people across America. Ironically, as Emma's success came to light, the Johnson family's financial situation worsened further. Mike's medical expenses continued to mount, and the stress from neighbors' cold stares began to interfere with Linda's cleaning work. And Sophia completely lost motivation for finding employment and began shutting herself in her room all day. 6 months later, the Johnson family's situation had deteriorated further. Mike's medical expenses continued to mount, and Linda's income alone was insufficient to maintain their lifestyle. Finally, they were forced to give up the apartment they had lived in for years and move to smaller, cheaper housing. The new apartment was a small single-story building with about half the space of their previous home. Sophia lost her private room and had to sleep in a corner of the living room with a partition. Life without privacy further deteriorated her mental state. Because you guys kicked out Big Sister, I have to suffer too, Sophia lashed out at her parents. If Big Sister were here, we wouldn't have to go through this hardship. Ironically, Sophia now recognized Emma's value. However, this wasn't from love for her sister, but regret at losing purely economic benefits. Meanwhile, Emma's success knew no bounds. Her autobiography, The Comeback Life of a Cast-Out Girl, became a bestseller immediately upon publication and was prominently displayed in bookstores across America. She frequently appeared on popular TV talk shows, and her message reached tens of millions of viewers. True family isn't about blood relations, Emma said on Ellen's popular show. It's about relationships where people support and respect each other. I was abandoned by my birth parents, but instead I found a new family all over the world. This statement caused a great response, and thousands of letters arrived from young people in similar circumstances. Emma established the charity, New Family Foundation, for them and began activities to support the independence of young people abandoned by their families. Sophia finally got a minimum wage job at a cafe, but felt uncomfortable every time Emma's topic came up among her colleagues. When told, "You're the sister of that famous Emma Johnson, aren't you?" "That's amazing," she could only nod with a complex expression. One day, a letter arrived from Katie, an 18-year-old girl Emma was supporting. She too had been abandoned by her family and was trying to recover from homelessness. "Emma, thanks to you I have hope. I'll work hard without giving up too. You're like a real mother to us. I never knew that even without blood ties, I could feel such warmth." Emma smiled quietly as she read this letter. Her Los Angeles office was overflowing with thank you letters from around the world. The walls were decorated with photos of young people supported by the new family foundation, like a large family's living room. Looking out the window, the blue Pacific Ocean spread out. A year and a half ago, she had looked at this same ocean from her car, her heart full of anxiety about the future. But now, she had become a light of hope for tens of thousands of young people. Emma began writing a reply to the letter. To Katie. I was moved by your courage. We have no blood ties, but we're a real family who can share the same pain. Let's work hard together. Just then, her manager Sarah entered the room. Emma, wonderful news. Harvard University has requested a lecture. The theme is, What is True Success? I'll accept, Emma replied immediately. There are surely students in similar circumstances to mine in the audience. As the sun set over the ocean, Emma finished her day's work and returned to her penthouse. The girl abandoned by her family now lived surrounded by tens of thousands of family members, scattered around the world. Family not connected by blood, but a true family connected by heart. Emma stood by the window, gazing toward her hometown in the distance. There was not hatred there, but quiet peace. She had truly become free and found her real family.